Okay, guys, so we have all come here together to discuss the incredible game that is the Mageseeker. First of all, how about you guys introduce yourself?
I'm Sara Costa. I'm the design director of the Mageseeker. I tell what should be done and other people do the job because all I can do is think about crazy ideas and then they come and say what can they do and what's not possible. Mostly that, just thinking what should be in the game and what not.
I'm Rowan. I'm the creative director of Riot Forge. I'm able to be part of what Sarah and our studios do and look good just by being next to her. No, I'm basically accountable for all of the creative and the IP work that we do on Forge. So all of the lore, all of the story, everything that we do in our Forge games, and I'm there at the beginning when we sign all of our studios. So all of the studios that we've worked with for not just the Mageseeker, but all of our other games, I am there in the background making sure that our stories and our world are as good as all League fans know it should be.
My first question would be, what inspired you to make this game and why Sylas?
Okay, I will start and Rowan will complete.
Yeah, you tell the start.
Okay, Riot approached our CEO, Javi, to see if we wanted to make a game with them, which of course we did. And we start pitching ideas, and we had several of them, and a small team got this idea of a character who could copy abilities from other champions. By that time, Sylas wasn't even announced.
Yeah.
And we weren't super sure about that idea because the main character is not a champion in League, so probably it's not a good idea. But we pitched it anyway. And a couple of weeks later, Sylas was announced.
They no joke. 3 weeks before we even announced Sylas on PBE, we were in a call and they pitched me basically the champion Sylas, but they had no idea that Sylas existed.
Oh my god.
And we had to keep a straight face in the call, like, oh yeah, that sounds like an interesting idea. Cool. And then when we got off the call, we were like, did we leak Sylas? Did they know? What's going on? And then about 3 weeks later, we just linked them everything on PBE because he goes, obviously he went to PBE and he got announced and everything. And we're like, yeah, that actually does sound like a really good idea.
My god.
We should totally explore. Like, you couldn't make it up.
Don't act suspicious.
No, it was like, was it January 2019, Sarah? And then February 20 was when Sylas came out.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
so basically,
crazy.
Sara and her team manifested it. They just manifested this character.
Yeah. We made a whole champion. We made a whole champion in 3 weeks just for the.
Wow! Of course. They were like, write it down.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, when we saw that character, because it was announced, but Ron didn't tell us anything, and we were like, okay, this was the champion we needed for the game.
Yeah.
And like all the other pitches were outside the table. We knew we needed to make the Sylas game.
So who contacted who? Like when Sylas came out, was Roman just like waiting to tell that to Digital Sun, or was Digital Sun waiting next to the phone and waiting to hear from them?
I mean, I think I sent you guys links, but you guys follow like PBE and announcement stuff anyway, so they knew as soon as it came out.
Wow, I love how cohesive it all is in the end. So okay. Regarding Sylas, and how he is in the game, compared to how he is in the lore, there are a couple of questions that I have. In the lore, there are two sides to Sylas. In John O'Brien's The Recruit, Sylas is depicted as an extremist whose idea of liberation is the execution of Demacia noblemen. So much so that he even pushes a new recruit, a kid, to follow his lead and take part in it. Which is very different than how he treated Ruko, I must say. But then, in Anthony Reynolds' The Shackles of Belief, Sylas is depicted as a respectful, strong, and kind warrior who's ready to negotiate. So my question is, did Mageseeker retcon the extremist side of him? Was it like a rewriting of his character? Was it the recruit something that happened in the future? Which I kinda doubt, because Leilani would never let that slide.
Sarah, you want me to tank this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, reminder that, our characters are living characters, they evolve and they grow over time as we, build more story and build more lore on them. John's recruit story, I think, is actually one of the first prose fiction explorations into the character. I think it was like the first short story along with his bio, or like directly after his bio. Whereas Ants, when he wrote Shackles, that was I think like a year later, or like quite a bit later. So I would actually look at the recruit as like, you know, being one of those first explorations into the character. Whereas with Forge games, we can go beyond that and we can evolve the motivations and the methods of the character. So I'd personally see the Mageseeker as a more recent expression of Sylas, which gives him more space to breathe, you know, than the short story. Both examples, so the recruit, Shackles, and Mageseeker, they show Sylas's like unwavering dedication to tearing down the Mageseekers, and now post Mageseeker, the entire system which the institution was built on. However, in Mageseeker, he realizes that he needs to be more than just vengeful, and that I could see him still testing the resolve of new recruits the way he does in the recruit. However, using Ruko as an example, he doesn't need to test Ruko because Ruko proves himself almost immediately in the mission. Like, Ruko takes out that whole room of guys, so Sylas doesn't need to he's like, oh yeah, this kid's ready to go. We're good. So I think it's a spectrum. Try not to, like, I know it's easy to look at things binary of like, you know, he is or isn't, like extreme versus a thing. It's a growing spectrum. I think the recruit is an older like manifestation of Sylas, and things like Ant Reynolds' story and the Mageseeker are newer, but it's a scale, you know. Maybe there's a situation where Sylas would be willing to do that again post Mageseeker if the situation called for it, but I think he's definitely matured as a leader after the Mageseeker and knows that just vengeance isn't good enough.
So I think it's pretty much safe to say that like the recruit was like a very early exploration of Sylas, of like how he
one of the first.
Yeah, what he was like literally after
like directly after launch.
So it was like somewhere in between there, but then after he met Ruko and after he met Leilani, like he started like basically changing for the best, understanding.
Well, he didn't until Morgana made
until Morgana called him out, and until
Morgana called him out on his rubbish.
And until Leilani made the sacrifice that she made, and that really hit him deep. Unfortunately, Skyn couldn't come today, but I did save his question, and I wanted to share it on his behalf, ask it on his behalf. And the question is pretty dark, but I think it's fair to ask it because it is something that we have discussed within the lore community even before the game even came out. So why would you guys choose to broach a subject as deadly as eugenistic genocide? Were you aware of the severity of doing that and the difficulties of trying to tell a story about it?
As you just heard, you know, the genesis of the game, you know, is rooted in gameplay. You know, gameplay is usually where a lot of games and where story starts. So like Sarah was saying, when the team were exploring, you know, spell stealing and gameplay mechanics is like the core piece of Mageseeker. And then the character of Sylas came along and was like a great fit. But also, you know, Sarah, and, you know, I'm speaking from Forge point of view, but like, we felt compelled to tell like a cool story using Sylas's character because we thought we could tell something really meaningful and something what's the word, like something like timely for the time that the game was released, you know, this year, and for sort of, you know, the timely situation for that story to be appropriate. And we did the best we could to treat the source material of not just ďepiction, but the obvious parallels with the real world with as much due diligence and as much care as we could. And I think Sarah and the team at Digital Sun did a masterful execution of that kind of difficult story, especially in pixel art, with the pixel art that you guys are using. Sarah, I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, well, when Sylas came out and we saw his lore, we were like, okay, I mean, this is not a good guy. And then we did a recruit and we were like, okay, this is our main character. We have a lot of work to do here because, of course, we wanted to respect what Sylas is. We never wanted him to be a nice guy because it was, I mean, at first we were scared that we were making a game about a bad guy, but then we were, okay, we are making a game about an anti-hero. And this is super interesting because it's not something you usually see in the industry. So we took that as a chance, and of course it has been super difficult to tell this story and make sure players don't quit playing because they are doing bad things. But I mean, it has been lots of fun always finding that line that, okay, we don't want him to be extremely bad, but we also don't want him to be a nice guy because he's not. He's a revolutionary, and revolution isn't pretty.
Yeah.
So it was, I would say, it was fun to do. I mean, it was really, really interesting.
I think the way that you
Right.
guys balanced it was perfect because the discourse before the game, like a week before the game came out, when we found
Yeah,
out
we
about the
were
release,
watching.
we were all like, "Oh my god, how are they going to approach this?" Because
And-
we cannot sugarcoat the situation that is within
And
Demacia.
we just had to hold out to because we knew
Yeah,
that
of
we
course.
thought we'd done a pretty good job of it, but we just had to
So
wait.
all of us like tiptoed into the game, being like very nervous, because like I mean it's not a subject that usually people would talk about and or make games about,
Yeah.
or like they would, but like in a more darker setting and like from studios who basically focus on this type of content.
Yeah.
So what the longer first of all like from the very beginning of the game, like that we were just like thrown into the chaos, it was just like, okay, that's nice, I love this. And then as the game progresses, basically find out how like it just becomes darker and darker as the story progresses, and you're just like sitting there thanking you guys for doing that because
It-
that was so important.
Until then, I think everyone saw Demacia as this white city where everyone is cute.
Not
And
me.
Yeah, it was perfect and
I mean,
shining.
there are people that already knew the lore and know that Demacia was no good,
Yeah,
and they were
yeah.
like, "Hey, we are going to show what Demacia truly is. We are going to see some messy stuff." And well, Riot Forge was always encouraging us to do that, and it was so much great to think,
Yeah,
okay,
and-
yeah, it is what Demacia truly is.
Yes.
To tackle, like, I know Skyen will probably appreciate as well. The other version of this is if we did tiptoe around it, and Sarah and I both agreed immediately, no, that's not the cool way to tackle this story. That's not the cool way to tackle
Exactly.
this subject matter. We should just go straight at it directly. But also would remind, I know there is still a lot of fans of Demacia and Garen and characters, and remember that this is a game from the point of view of Sylas. It's through the eyes of Sylas, and we are getting Sylas's perspective and his view on Demacia, so it's going to be a bit darker, and it's going to, have the protagonist POV. That doesn't preclude that in the future, we could have more redemption, or we could build within Demacia, but in my opinion, it adds more color and nuance to Demacia, which otherwise would have been a little bit more milquetoast
Yeah.
and not as interesting. So I hope Skyen and the community can appreciate how much we did tackle this head on and try and Sarah and the team did a great job of doing like a compelling story for it.
I think what like a lot of people who don't really who haven't read the lore understand is that like Demacia in its core is very like a very secluded closed
Isolationist.
Isolated place that doesn't really understand what's going out like outside. So like
Yep.
all the things that they have issues with, or all the beliefs that they have, are like specifically within the issues that they have in their own society, basically.
Right.
And comparing that to everything else that's going on in Runeterra, which is on
Yeah.
a whole other scale, people can like basically now understand that the way that the Mossians behave and they act and what's going on the inside is not much of a surprise. Like, it's obvious that something like that would happen. No society is perfect, especially if you have read the story of Kayle and Morgana and saw how it all began.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it's more understandable now as well. Like Demacia is
Yes.
isolationist out of a need for survival.
Mhm.
They didn't start, they didn't just immediately go for that. The need to, turtle and become that way to survive against the magic that was there at the time. You can hopefully see the path of how they arrived there. That doesn't mean that they're stuck in time, though, in this one spot. They could still grow and they could still, evolve beyond that. But now we get to follow that story and go along with it, maybe not in the Mageseeker, but in like future stuff.
Yeah, I've had many people come to my stream and ask me lore questions during the stream and be like, wait, what is actually happening within Demacia? And I had the time of my life breaking it down to them and be like, yes, this is happening, and we see it and we get to take part in it, which is absolutely amazing.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
I have a question for Sarah. Rowan mentioned that you guys are massive fans of League of Legends and its lore, so I wanted to know what was your process like learning about the lore, because obviously there was so much nuance. So was there things that you didn't know and got to know as you played?
there were a lot of things we didn't know. I mean, we were familiar with the lore and the IP and everything, but then at some point when we started to think about the story we wanted to tell, we were in this point where we were working, but our work was basically reading source stories and the material everyone was sharing with us. And for example, the Lux comic that they shared with us the script before it was released and everything. And it was so cool. I mean, because it's something that I would normally do in my free time because I like that. So, but yeah, and suddenly it was my job to learn all those stuff. And if I had questions, come in and ask Rowan, okay, I'm not super clear about this point, or is this developed enough so we can use it, or should we research on this? And at some point, Rowan was like, okay, we haven't done much work on that area yet, so you're free to complete the spots as you for eager. So I mean, it was great. I remember those times like Alvar and Alvar is the art director who is, I mean, now he's a lore expert. He has learned a lot. and it was so much fun because we were like, okay, have you read this short story? No. Have you read this one? And there was a process where we were learning a lot of lore and just thinking how could we use that to tell a story in the Mageseeker. And yeah, I mean, it was so much fun. I mean, we weren't forced for that. I mean, as soon as we know we had to do that, we were super happy.
I think with all the little Easter eggs and all the like little notes that were left throughout the game, we like really noticed like the passion to the actual lore and how much research you have done there.
So the those are lore notes that are left around the game. They're actually written by writers, which are internal at Riot. So all of our writers, or like many of our writers, jump in and write all of those journals and notes. So the reason that those are all so accurate and so steeped in story and Easter eggs is because we work with Forge, brings in all of the writers, and everyone has a chance to contribute and write something. So we get so many of those notes.
That's also what you guys did for Ruined King, because the Ruined King had like a plethora of those notes as well.
We did it for Convergence as well recently, so it's something that our writers enjoy and love doing.
Love that.
Note as well on being able to watch Sara and her team basically consume all of our lore. It's kind of like watching a new fan, like watching fans eat up all of the lore, and then when they were done, they came to me like, do you have any more? And I'm like, well, no, but you guys are about to make more. So,
oh my god!
Like, you could, like, unlike a regular fan, like you can go and make more. We can together make more of, more story, basically more cake for everyone to have cake.
Continue to world building of
They were like, we ran out of cake. It was like, that's cool. We can bake more cake together, and then we can eat it 4 years later.
The next question would be, what was your biggest challenge of making the game, basically?
I would say that working with an IP like League that everyone around the world knows, that you are going to build something that is going to have some projection, that it's going to arrive to many people. So you have this pressure where you have to do it extremely good. Because I mean, everything Riot has delivered is really good. So even if we are not Riot, we are 𝗳𝗀𝘀cie, we are another studio. They are our publisher and they are allowing us to work with their IP. In the end, the player is going to see a Sylas game. So this is a League game, and I mean the expectations were super high. And at first we were super scared, excited, but scared because I mean, when you are making a game with your own IP that's small and nobody knows, you don't have this pressure. But once you start to work with something such huge as League, I mean, that's because you really want to do that well. I mean, for example, as Rowan said, we have been League fans for so long. In my case, I've been playing League since season 3. So I mean, I can be one of those players, and I want those products to be good because I really like that IP. So I mean, it was super scary. Like, okay, I would criticize this if it's not good enough.
Right.
And it was a lot of pressure, but I mean, it was so much fun too. But yeah, first it was super scary.
I think because of the background you guys have with the game and understanding the game so much, that's why you had such a major success with the side characters as well. Because I think like one of the most favorite, like fan favorite character out there is 𝗷𝗶𝘱, and the fact that I've painted myself red literally an hour before stream says everything.
Sara, tell them where the name 𝗷𝗶𝘱 came from.
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually our programming director. Last name is 𝗷𝗶𝘱.
Oh!
And we wanted to call her 𝗷𝗶𝘱, but it was not sounding pretty good, so we leave that to 𝗷𝗶𝘱.
It wasn't yodel enough, but we got like a yodel version of the engineering director.
What did you enjoy the most making the game?
Okay, this is going to sound cheesy, but I don't care. It's the team. I mean, we have been working on this for 4 years, which can be really exhausting. I mean, making games is super difficult, but all the team has been super passionate about it. Not only Digital Sun, also riotforge. Like, everyone has pushed to make sure this game is as good as it could be. And that is something that we have had during the 4 years. I mean, it's not something like we start and we are super passionate and then people start to get tired. And no, we had that during the whole development, and being part of something where everyone wants to do their best and want the final product to be as good as possible is incredibly good. Because I mean, it's super hard making games, and if you don't do that with passionate people, it's not worth it. But it wasn't the case. I'm super happy we got to work. I mean, not only here at Digital Sun, as I said, but also with riotforge. I mean, they was so helpful. I mean, and they allow us to create so many things for the game. And yeah, I mean, it has been great. And it's not easy because we are based in Valencia, they are based in LA.
Right.
So it is kind of weird, but we had meetings every week, several times a week at some points in development.
For 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, at any point I could write Rowan or Noah and okay, we are check this. What do you think? Or for example,
we're right. We're just basically a message away for you guys, and we've just been talking constantly for 4 years about Sylas and 𝗳𝗶𝘱𝗱.
That's crazy. Yeah. Like, this is like the highest level of communication I've ever heard of, because like I can imagine how, and if you're saying that you've been doing this for 4 years, that means that you were also doing it during COVID.
Yep.
Yes.
Wow.
Which had less impact on our relationship because, you know, like Sarah's saying, they're in Spain, we're in California.
Right.
So it's not like we could visit each other anyway. So when the pandemic started, we just had kept the same communication channels.
Wow. Wow,
but,
that's incredible. Good job, guys. Amazing. What was one of the most surprising things you learned in creating the game?
Who killed Yaron 3? Because we knew from the very beginning.
We've known for years.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, and other things, we know something more, but you will know later.
There's a continuation? Okay, that's good.
But yeah, I mean, you know, just learning things ahead of everyone else is like, really? Now we know this, and it was super exciting.
This is so nerve-wracking too, though, because you can't tell it to anyone.
The Yaron 3 one was a pretty cool.
Wow, that's sick.
I mean, not just not being able to tell people about, you know, like secret stuff like Katarina and 𝗷𝗶𝘱 3. Sorry, spoilers if someone hasn't read the comic yet. Go and read the comic. I think, Sara, you should tell the story about you weren't even able to tell your family about about working on the Mageseeker.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't able to tell anything until the game was announced with a teaser, like in February. But we have been doing that for 4 years. So for my family, it has been a secret. They knew I was working on a secret project with a big IP, but they couldn't imagine what I was doing. My brother and my sister are huge big fans, and they would have never imagined this. And the day it was this, I went to visit them, and well, I read them in the morning saying, I will go home tonight because I have something to tell you. Their conclusion was that I was pregnant. They couldn't imagine that. I was I arrived there and I'm like, no, I'm not pregnant, but I can tell you what I've been working on for 4 years. And my brother, being sarcastic, said, did you imagine she tell us she's been working on that Sylas game that was just announced? And I was like, actually, yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. And they freak out. I mean, my brother say that was much better than a pregnancy, which I agree.
I mean, it is your baby. It is your baby. I've already made that joke.
4-year baby.
Yep. Congratulations on your child. Yes. Yeah. A really beautiful child. At the end of the last show, it said that Sona ran away from 𝗳𝗶𝘱𝗮 after killing 3 mages. Where did she go? And also, where's Zhao?
Do you want me to jump in?
Yeah. I mean, this is
this is a good question because we can grab like all of them at once. You know, players will often ask us, you know, where is champion X, or where is this champion, or where is that champion, or, you know, did you guys forget this champion? And so the short answer is no, we didn't forget anyone. As you heard, we think about everything, literally everything, every possibility, every champion, every storyline, every connection. We analyze and break down every narrative arc possibility, but in the end, the stories that we tell, and, you know, the Mageseeker is no different, we want to make sure we can do justice to the story. We want to make sure we can tell a good story. That means we can't do everybody, unfortunately. If we tried to put everybody in the game, it would be like the kitchen sink. And so, you know, we could get like Quinn and Vayne and Sona and Shin and Zhao, like we could get everybody in, but they would be shallow. And they wouldn't have the really cool, deep, like, character exploration and storytelling that we get to do in the Forge games. So rather than go wide and shallow, we choose to go narrow and deep so that we can really do justice to the characters. So, you know, in the case of, you know, like, where is Sona or where is Shin, we don't touch on that on purpose because they weren't critical to the story that we were telling and the character growth that Sylas was having. We feel like, you know, the characters we do include, like 𝗳𝗀𝘀cie and Shyvana and Garen and Lux, those are in the immediate circle around Sylas, and they were like narratively critical to growing him as a character. And as much as we wanted to include, you know, other characters, you know, like a Sona or a Fiddlesticks or a Zhao, you know, whatever it is, we can't. So I know that might not answer this person's question of like, where is Sona or where is Shin? I mean, the answer is, that's not our question to answer. The Mageseeker doesn't attempt to answer that. So, you know, I'll let something else in the future take care of that. But
I personally, like, when people were asking me about Sona, I initially brought up the story of the last show and basically talking about like how she basically, like, in the story, she basically escaped 𝗳𝗶𝘱𝗮 after killing the Mageseekers because she didn't want to endanger her family and her best friend who she was performing with. So like it would make sense that she will completely basically escape 𝗳𝗶𝘱𝗮 to not endanger anyone. But with like Shin being the prince's personal guard, it was like kind of like weird that he wasn't even around. I mean, like there was him and there was Garen, but like Shin was supposed to kind of be like an intricate part of it. At least, like, that's what we've basically been talking about. So is it, like, safe to say that, like, Shin basically had a different role within that story that was, like, somewhere in the background and maybe,
Sarah,
like,
we feature the letter, don't we? The letter that Shin... Like, we touch on that. I think it's, like, stage 8 or 9 or 10-ish, like...
Yeah, it's after...
it's, like, past halfway into the game. We draw a thread between, I think it's one of Shin's short stories, where he is doing a different mission which 𝗳𝗀𝘀 gave him, and then we connect that back in the story. So we can't show him on screen.
I see.
But we connect the letter that he was. I think he was delivering a letter.
Yes.
Okay, so story-wise, Shin was actually on a mission. That's why he wasn't.
Which is over in Shin's part of the story, not in 𝗳𝗀𝘀's bio or universe work. But I think there was a couple of.
That's why he's not there. When Sylas escapes, because he's not even in the master.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that's if you go and read Shin's lore, he's off doing a thing because 𝗳𝗀𝘀 like sent him off to do it. I'm pretty sure.
So that's basically connected to the letter within
which
the
we
game.
tie into the story, but that's why he's not in the story.
Okay.
But also, I think there was a couple of characters that just would like just barely below the line, or we debated,
Mm-hmm.
do we try and continue that thread for Shin and actually bring him back into the capital and
Mm-hmm.
put him in the story? But narratively, what's the goal of that? What purpose does that serve?
Right, yeah.
That might be cool for fans of Shin. It might be a cool relationship between Shin and 𝗳𝗀, but that's not directly related to Sylas,
Right.
and it's not critical to the story of the Mage Revolution moving forward.
Our next question is, where is Kayle? Because she, like, we've seen her power, we've seen Wisteria using her power, we've seen Morgana, but, like, Kayle just didn't show up. So, is she in Prime, in Targon Prime, hanging out with Mom, or, like...
So, technically, Morgana doesn't show up either, right? From the
Right.
point of view of the average Demacian citizen, Morgana is still a myth and a legend. The Veiled
Right.
Lady is still someone that they pray to.
Mm-hmm.
I think the point here is that, and this maybe ties into like other questions around like, why didn't Morgana like appear and solve the problem? Like, couldn't
Right.
Morgana have just like taken out all of the Mageseekers really easily? Like, she's
Right,
crazy
yeah,
powerful.
yeah,
Why didn't Morgana just like get rid of the Mageseekers? Morgana understands that the mortals have to solve their own problems, and that her coming down with an angelic solution and forcing everybody to be nice is not a long-term solution for Demacia. So she has instead chose to subtly nudge and poke the country and poke the citizens over the course of decades and centuries to try and improve and move them towards a better future. Morgana also realizes that if she appears, she will trigger Kayle to appear. If Morgana shows up, Kayle has to show up to balance her sister out, and that would be catastrophic for Demacia.
Right.
So instead, Morgana realizes the true change of Demacia, it comes from when a community decides together how they want to move forward. So instead, she chooses to bet on a champion like Sylas and have him be the one that maybe carries that torch forward. Because if Morgana just shows up, Kayle just shows up, and now they fight
Right,
again.
and then they fight again,
And
yeah.
that doesn't solve anything. So
Right.
Morgana knows that.
Okay.
And so she's like, that's why she tells Sylas, because Sylas is like, why are you in this cave? Why
Right.
couldn't you just solve it? She's like, no, that's not a proper solution.
Right. So as to not trigger Kayle,
Basically,
she
yeah, to
stays
not-
in a cave.
Yeah, because they are two sides of a coin. They are
Right.
balanced out. And I think Sara and the team, you guys did a great job of like showing the symbolism in the
Yeah.
balance of two sides of the coin by basically a proxy war where Morgana bets on Sylas and Kayle is betting on Wisteria.
Speaking of Wisteria, her resemblance to Kayle, was it like purely symbolic, or was there more to it?
What do you think?
I think that she was pretty much, because like, so the way that Sylas was for Morgana, I felt like Wisteria was to Kayle. And them being basically growing up together and so differently affected them and their way of thinking. So eventually seeing them basically fighting each other and recreating the fight between Kayle and Morgana felt very like I don't, what's the word? I forget the word in English. But it was just like it felt symbolic, but it was just like more than that.
I mean, in the end, as Kayle and Morgana, like everyone said, they are the same. I mean, the two sides of the coin. Wisteria and Sylas is the same because they were both Mageseekers, but they just split. And Wisteria in the end is what Sylas could have been if that accident didn't ever happen. He would have become a Mageseeker, big Mageseeker, and probably one of the big ones. So just having that symbolism that Wisteria is what Sylas could have been, and Sylas is what Wisteria could have been if he had lost control over her magic. So it just felt good to have that. I can find the word in English, but yeah, that two sides of the same thing.
I feel like, I hope we showed that, it's the choices that both of them made, Sylas and Wisteria, that led to the people they become. And in my headcanon, this is, not in the game, but in my headcanon, at the end there, Wisteria is maybe mad at herself because she realizes the choices I made is why I am here.
Right.
And if I have made different choices, she could have ended up like Sylas instead.
Right.
And that she's maybe the most frustrated at herself for what she became. and that we can show the two versions of who someone can become based on the choices they make by using Sylas and Wisterias to balance each other.
And I mean, the fact that I think after she lost, where she realizes that she was like truly mad at herself, that's where like she basically allowed herself to let go of that like obsession that she was brought up with and asked Sylas for help to basically raise
which Dinka is ironic because Sylas was also letting go of an obsession
yes
and needed to grow up. So yes. Also, I'd just like to call out, the story and the stuff we're talking about. I don't think a lot of players expected this when they loaded up a cool pixel action hack and slash game.
No.
Like Sara and the quality of execution and like the like to Skyen's point, like from his way earlier question, I think we tackle some really interesting story issues and some really like hard hitting topics, and I think it came out really well.
Yeah. The way that you guys went into the depths of like, let's say, Sylas's like past and emotions and how he had to deal with and how he had to face it, especially with those specific boss fights, which was like I just freaked out because it's just like you're having an exorcism moment with this kid that is like turning into
Rain.
I was just like,
Rain
is
was
this
like
really
the first boss you
happening?
guys
Is
made,
this
wasn't it, Sara?
happening?
Sorry?
Rain was like the first boss we made, wasn't it?
Not the first, but one of the first.
Yeah.
It was like, I mean, we first did the
Helmet Bro
one
was
of
the
the
first one,
Helmet
wasn't
Bro,
it?
and then it was the second.
Wow. No, Rain was, I was just absolutely terrified. First of all, the boss fight is genius. Okay, like all the anxiety, I was sweating buckets trying to manage to fight through it, and especially because you don't expect the phases. You finish one and you're like, oh wait, there's more, and then you finish that one and you're like, oh okay, I'm good. And it's like, but wait, there's more, and then you're like, how do I get through this? But it's the feeling of managing to get through it and defeating Rain in the end, which is like really like feels so freaking amazing. And also the fact that at the end Sylas ends up adopting Rain and becoming her mentor is such a huge thing because now he is officially a DILF. So anyway, when it comes to, Leilani's soup and how Sylas is now in charge of it, is the secret ingredient rats?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Next
question. That was really important. Okay, next question.
Protein has to come from somewhere, right?
So now I have some questions from my community, which I've asked on Discord and on Facebook, on Discord, on YouTube, and on Twitter. And
I think his community.
Yeah. So they had some questions of their own. I think that some of them we've already covered, so we'll just go very quickly through them. Delta Stream asks, so far these games have been localized to one area of Runeterra. So like Rune King was Bilgewater and Shadow Isles, Hextech Mayhem was built over in Zon, and now we've had Demacia. Is there a possibility for a riotforge game to take place in a broader setting where there are more crossover elements like Shurima and Ikathia with the Void Rift, Piltover and Ixchel, Demacia and Noxus, etc.? Or are the big crossover events getting saved for something else like the MMO?
So there's kind of two parts inside what this person's question is asking. I mean, the simple answer is yes, you can do anything at all in a video game, obviously. When they say crossover events, it looks like they're referring to just sort of how many regions or how many factions we include in the game. Oftentimes that's just limited by the nature of game development. Imagine on Mageseeker if the team had to go and draw all of the pixel art for, Ionia and Noxus, and, we would never finish the game. So the realities or like the pragmatic realities of game development usually means you sort of constraining scope, or you have constraints as you're going, which means we can't go literally everywhere. Also, the kind of stories that you tell, I think, at least in my opinion, we get better character studies or better personal vignettes of characters by focusing down on their like core stories, and that usually ends up being in the region they're in. I feel like there's still so much space to tell these great stories about our champions where they are before we need to send them to other countries. Like, they don't need to we don't need to send them off adventuring to other places just
Right.
yet, because we haven't even really had a chance. We're just beginning to explore them in their homeland before we
Mhm.
send them off to, you know, other places just yet. So
I think that you did a really good job with how, even though like the game itself was so like solely focused on Demacia, you did make a comic that just connected into the game, which was like a genius way of like basically segueing into this, which was basically all about Noxus, which I mean, I was really happy about.
are you a fan? I can't tell.
I was just, you know, just a tiny bit, just a little bit. But yeah, the way that you just segued into it and dropped the biggest news of basically who the Kingslayer actually was, and then getting into the game where now we know for sure that Sylas is not the one who did that, that, you know, it wasn't even a mage who did that, and how all of it blew out of proportion just because people were ignorant. So I think even for future projects, this could be like a great way of like basically showing those other regions without actually having to implement them into the game itself. So keep doing it, it's amazing. How far in advance do you plan the development of this game? So we know that it's been like 4 years that the game itself was in development. Was there any time before that you've been planning it, like overall?
I think years is just the easy answer. Making
Okay.
video games takes years,
Right.
is the simple answer. You know, in the case of this game, I loved Moonlighter. Moonlighter is a fantastic game, which is the game that Digital Sun made before this.
Right.
And so, you know, we reached out and was like, hey, you guys make a really good game. Would you maybe like to consider working with us? And they were nice enough to say yes.
So like basically you've already considered working with them in the past, and then like this has been like the perfect opportunity to actually be able to work together, and the game itself has been in the making for 4 years.
Yeah, in a simple
Okay.
way.
In simple word, yeah.
It was hard to believe that Riot wanted to make a game with us.
Did the mail go to spam? You
Yeah.
probably went to spam folder. Like, this is not real.
Yeah. Javi, the CEO, just told us like Riot contacted me and they seemed they want to make a game with us, and we were like, no, that's not true. No, I mean,
It can't be happening. That's
ideas
okay.
were like, I mean, we are doing this because it's fun, but this is not going to happen. And I remember when I went to the first meeting with Rowan and a couple more just to pitch the ideas we had, and we finished that meeting, and I turned to my boss and say, they want to make a game with us. This is real. This is going to
Wow.
happen.
Yeah,
And
it's real.
yeah.
That's exciting. I think that's what's so amazing about Riot Forge is that like you, even us, the fans and the players, don't know what to expect because there are so many incredible indie companies that we have probably never heard of, and this is an amazing opportunity for us to actually be able to experience new gameplay and just like new designs and just like overall different experiences. So like this was one of the best because I love pixel games. I love pixel art. I know how hard it is to create a game like that, to be able to put so much detail in such a tiny little sprite. Yeah, you guys nailed it, and I'm so happy that this connection happened. What are the factors that led to choosing one storyline to become a game over the other storylines?
So you heard us mention before, like, often gameplay is king, or gameplay is, you know, the root of like, or the genesis of like prototypes when you're building or doing game development. But there is this like wedding that happens between gameplay and thematic and art, and, you know, like Sarah was saying, they pitched us you know, the gameplay and the gimmick, and then as we were talking through Sylas, and then I think Sarah, you guys in the team, you were very passionate about Demacia and the story and the space, and then, you know, but they don't know what we know on Forge, and I know about, you know, larger Demacia and the kind of stories we want to tell, and it seems like a great opportunity to tell a story in Demacia with these characters that can help flesh out the world a little bit and help build some more color and some more nuance into Demacia and some of the story. So it sort of happens organically, and it comes along as we're making games with studios. To be clear, Forge never comes to studios with make this. That's not how we work. That's not how Ruin King was made. That's not how Mageseeker was made. It's not how Except Mayhem. None of our games are made that way. It's a organic a culmination of gameplay, art, story, everything sort of coming together.
Next question is from Golden Ant. Scraped idea you wish you had in the game. What was it?
Can't tell because there were several. I mean, when you're creating the game, you want that to be cute and extremely good, and you have all these ideas. And as everyone said, we consider so many lead characters to be in the game, and in the end, you are like, okay, if we want to do a good game, we can't have all of them. We have to cut. And with the development, it happens the same. If you want the game to be good, you can't have all this content. You have to see what's needed and what's not. And that's always hard because you really want to do everything. But of course, you don't have all the time in the world or all the money in the world. You have to finish the product. And and of course, I mean, I couldn't tell a thing because, I mean, there were so many we had to cut. But I'm happy with what is not in the game because I think what we deliver is the experience we wanted to. And of course, I mean, with more time, more people, we could have had more, but I don't think it was necessary.
But could you give us at least like one thing that you guys scraped out? Just one thing.
We used to have a couple more stages, didn't we, Sarah? And then we compressed the story elements of some of those stages. Like there was a couple of stages like an A, B, and then we ended up merging them together, and it became like one stage.
We had more missions.
Wow.
Because there was, but like Sarah says, you know, having more missions doesn't matter if players never get to touch the game because we don't finish. So you have to make a tough decision at some point.
Was a specific character you had to cut out, but you considered?
I mean, like we mentioned, all of the, you know, we talked about like, do we do anything with Quinn? Do we do anything with Sona? Do we do anything with Shin?
So you were actually thinking of like adding them at the beginning, but because they didn't really add to Sylas.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, everyone is on the table, right?
Yeah. I mean, we even consider people from outside Demacia. Like, does this make any sense? And as Rowan said, you need to see what story do you want to tell.
Like, what do they contribute to the story?
Yeah. And we want to tell the story about Sylas and how he starts the revolution and the themageseekers, and there were characters that weren't aligned with that. I mean, there are characters there that I really loved and are not in the game, but it didn't make sense.
My next question comes from Notorious444. If Morgana didn't shackle her wings, and in doing so kind of corrupting herself, would she look just like another Kayle?
So this is my headcanon, because so to be clear, there's no answer for this. I don't think there's like not an official answer, but so my headcanon would be, so they said if she didn't shackle her wings, would she look like Kayle? So I think the two pieces there, one is going to be the color of her wings and one's going to be the shape or size. So color, in my opinion, wouldn't be changed, because remember, Kayle and Morgana were not born with their wings. They were gifted. I think the specific wording that they use is shadow and starfire. They were wreathed in shadow and starfire. So that means when they were gifted their wings from when they fell from heaven, they were already colored. Shadow is purple, starfire is yellow. And then the wings burst from the girl's shoulders. So color, no change, because that was how they were given. And then for shape and size, I think we've already suggested in the past that they are the same if they weren't chained up. There's some of the original art when we first did the reworks of Kayle and Morgana, which show them like yin and yang, like opposite, and they are perfectly balancing each other, and they are opposite. So I think if Morg doesn't have her wings bound, they probably do look a lot like Kayle's. But she has them bound up, so they have that downward shaped silhouette where they're like drooping down instead.
There was I remember in the game there's a part where Sylas and Ruko stand in front of a massive mural that shows like basically Kayle and Morgana like fighting each other. But Morgana had like a sword, and she had a helmet, and like she was like completely decked out in like similar outfit that Kayle had. So they kind of looked the same, but they were completely different colors.
Remember as well, we're looking at those things through multiple layers. So first of all, it's the pixel art of the game, so it's the pixel art interpretation, but also that's the modern Demacian mural
Right.
which the modern ďeph𝗺cions have decided to use to depict Kayle and Morgana. Same as with the statues that are in like the plazas. So
Right.
modern ďeph𝗺cions, that's been going over however many generations. So the modern ďeph𝗺cions aren't necessarily perfectly accurate either. They don't have like a Google image of exactly what Morgana looked like, and then they're sculpting their sculptures.
Right.
So that's also going through layers of obfuscation of ďeph𝗺cian history before it arrives at like a mural. I think the thing that matters there is that it's like a representation of them.
All I have to say is that during her boss fight, she briefly unshackles her wings.
Right.
Really
breaks them.
but yeah, you can have an image there.
Misty asks, conditions pertaining to COVID-19 notwithstanding, can you tell me of any particularly difficult obstacle that you faced when developing the story? And a follow-up question, do you feel that the existing lore may have closed creative avenues that you might have otherwise explored for these characters?
Okay, so for the first one, I would say, as I said before, the time difference, because I mean, when we were finishing our day, they were starting there. So just trying to find this window to talk things and check everything was kind of hard, because if you have to do that during 4 years.
Right.
But and yeah, and sometimes you finish your day, send something, and it's like, okay, I will see tomorrow what they answer, because they haven't even wake up. And yeah, that was kind of hard, but it was also cool because we got to CLA and they came to Valencia, and that's always fun. And the second one was,
the second one was a follow-up question. Do you feel that the existing lore may have closed creative avenues that you might have otherwise explored for these characters?
Not at all. We were super free while doing the game. Of course, we had to respect the characters and the existing lore, but we wanted to do that because we already knew that lore and we were already fans of this IP. So we were the first one interested in respecting what was already there and giving the players a good version of Sylas, a good version of Morgana, and a good version of ddemacia. So not at all. And also Riot Force always encouraged us to push forward these characters. I mean, we weren't never constrained, but what was already there, just starting with Sylas. I mean, you see what he's able to do in League and what he's able to do in the Mageseeker, and a huge difference. And they also, I mean, for example, as I said, where there were some spots in the lore, they push us to build those parts. Like, for example, with the Mageseekers, we didn't have a lot of information, and Rowan encouraged us to find what they were doing in ddemacia, what was their objective, and all that kind of stuff. And we were like, do we really can think about this? And another example, we found that it was really interesting to mix Sylas and Morgana, because they never met before, and we were a bit scared, like, hey Rowan, can we have Morgana in the game? And I was like, yeah, sure. But
no, that was a slam dunk. That was when
genius.
Yeah, when we first started talking about that, we were like, wait, that actually kind of makes sense. That's actually really cool. And the power differential between them kind of makes it cool too, because Morgana is like a demigod. Like Morgana is like way more powerful than Sylas. So that actually makes it pretty cool.
Yeah. And the fact that Sylas is pretty much like an atheist and he doesn't believe in it, but both of them have the same shared passion for chains.
And then he's presented with a literal demigod that he can't beat. And he's like, so I'm here, make me your champion. And she goes, no. He's like, wait, what? No, that's not how this goes. And she's like, go away.
Yeah.
Grow up. Go and grow up, little boy. And he's like, what?
Also, develop the story as we needed to. They allow us to create many new characters because, of course, I mean, we can't change who Sylas is or who Garen is, but they always allow us to, okay, we can create new characters for this and to help Sylas evolve the direction we need him to evolve. And that was super fun. I mean, we were never constrained. We did anything we wanted to do with the story, and we are happy that we made that being consistent with the existing lore. And at the same time, we did what we wanted to tell. I mean, it's been super fun. I mean, we were never constrained by what was already there.
Players might not realize what we're doing, or what the team is doing with all of the extra characters, but each one of those NPCs kind of serves as a narrative mirror to hold up to Sylas and reflect his character back at himself. And they are all very different people and characters, and it gives us an opportunity to show the different facets and angles of Sylas's character by reflecting him in the mirror of 𝗹𝗶𝘱 and Aiden and 𝗹𝗀ance and Ruko, and those interaction points give you a chance to stretch and tease and pull the character out to give it more body and to create more of a character. But also all of the NPCs that Sara and the team made, some of them are like really cool. Like I think 𝗹𝗶𝘱 is pretty hilarious. And Ruko, I think people like Ruko just because he's clearly going to be pretty powerful when he grows up.
Yep.
Or he's already pretty powerful.
Yep.
But yeah, people might not realize that there's a lot of double or triple heavy lifting that those NPCs are doing for gameplay, as they're your crafting stations around the base, but also narratively.
I think each and every one of these characters could be a standalone champion within the world of Runeterra, which is why all of us got like connected to them so much. I mean, I barely knew 𝗹𝗀ance and I was sobbing. Just like sobbing hysterically because I got like connected to this character, and now she's gone because she's made this huge sacrifice and I'm weak to good storytelling. So and obviously Aiden and Sylas having conversations about like giving dating advices and everything, which was absolutely hilarious and was so on brand for Sylas, since he is the top of the mage like his mage riz is like out of this world.
I have to say, I saw the 𝗹𝗀ance moment on your stream, and I felt kind of bad. So sorry for that.
You didn't feel bad. You were like, yes.
Yes, I did it.
Working as intended.
I mean, like at the end, it was like because we knew we wanted to do that, and when we saw the results, we were like, oh, we are monsters. We are terrible people.
I think it was really important because, unfortunately, because Runeterra is still like growing. I mean, it's not unfortunate; it's a good thing. But like, unfortunately, it's really hard to kill off specific characters to be able to push others forward to like basically advance their character development. And here, this was a perfect opportunity to do just that. So although we get connected to 𝗹𝗀ance on a spiritual level, losing her was painful, but it like we understood as people who like to consume really good storytelling that it was really important for to be able to basically advance Sylas as a man. My next question comes from Mimi Heidi. Who is your favorite character in the game?
I would say Kara and Rain.
I love Rain. How about you, Rowan?
I like 𝗹𝗶𝘱.
Okay.
I like 𝗹𝗶𝘱 for the character, but also the animation, because 𝗹𝗶𝘱 is a different shape to the other character. Because it's a little,
he's like bounces.
Yeah, it's a little yodel. So, and the spear is, and in those missions where you're like, on the sides, you can see all of them fighting.
Yeah.
The animations for 𝗹𝗶𝘱 with the spear, where she's like knocking back all of the stuff.
Yeah.
And they look really cool.
I'm really happy we did 𝗹𝗶𝘱 because I remember when we were thinking about which characters to create for Sylas' army, and like they were kind of pretty dark, and well, okay, we need something different, and we were in the room thinking, okay, what if we add a yordle? Or like, yes, we're going to ask for a yordle, and then came to Rowan, hey Rowan, we want to create a yordle, and Rowan was like, yes, do that, please.
Also, think from 𝗹𝗶𝘱. 𝗹𝗶𱗱 is like 300 years old, right?
Yeah.
And 𝗹𝗶𝘱, and what is 𝗹𝗶𝘱 doing? 𝗹𝗶𝘱 is like, yeah, sure, I'll just jump in on this human revolution for like what's going, like what has 𝗹𝗶𝘱 done for the last 300 years, and like why do they even care? But
friends.
Yeah.
I'm just here to vibe.
It's like,
you
yeah,
guys.
sure. I mean, sure, why not? Let's go do this. You're like actually kind of sleeper OP. What are you doing, yordle?
She was just like sitting there like, I love the energy that you have created here, and I want to join in.
And well, when you first meet her, and like, it's in 𝗵𝗀𝘱's laboratory, like in the basement, right? And you're down there, and you're like, oh, it's a yordle. And I think for a lot of players, like, oh, it's a yordle. In my head, I'm like, what is that yordle doing there?
Yeah, straight up. And how casual she was. I was like, yeah, he was making experiments on me.
Yeah.
And,
also, screw that guy in particular. Him and the horse he rode in on. Go and get that guy. And you're like, all right, I'm with you, but we need to talk when we get back.
Does Riot Forge approach people, or do they apply to like Forge?
Both.
Both.
Yep. Sometimes, you know, if we're playing games which are really cool, like Moonlighter, we reach out. Sometimes studios reach out and contact us, and then we're like, oh, these people make amazing games. Both.
So if there are any indie companies out there that would like to share their awesome games and stuff, you should contact Riot Forge because they're cool and they might actually consider you.
People are welcome to ping me, but yeah, we are pretty busy at the moment. But yeah.
The next question comes from Urlox, and he asks, since it's a spoiler for the final boss, did you decide early that you wanted to reintroduce the Kayle and Morgana conflict with Sylas and Wisterias as a direct correlation? Or did the idea come up later on in development? And are you satisfied with the result?
I think, I mean, as I said, having Morgana in the game came pretty early, and can't talk about Morgana without talking about Kayle, because that makes no sense. I mean, people is going to ask about Kayle. So, yeah.
Endily asks, considering the Mageseeker was released roughly 4 years after Sylas' original release and the time it takes to produce video games, I was wondering how long in advance the team of Digital Sun got to start working on the game, and whether or not they were the way the lore progressed for both Sylas and Runeterra impacted the writing until the very last moment.
I mean, as we said before, we pitched the idea before Sylas was announced, so you can say we have been basically working on that from the moment he was announced.
Right, and did you were you forced to change things because lore kept changing throughout this past 4 years?
So I would actually say it's probably the other way around, and it's symbiotic. So you know, as we're making things like the Mageseeker, you know, obviously we're working on other stuff internally, and the other stuff internal can see what we are doing on the Mageseeker and vice versa. So sometimes we are like intentionally connecting pieces together. So a good example would be things like the Shackles story that Ant Reynolds wrote was written in collaboration with me and with Forge, knowing that the Mageseeker existed, and we already knew what the ending of the Mageseeker was going to be when Ants wrote that story. So while players see it, the order of operations the other way around, they see the story come out first and then wonder 3 years later, oh, are they going to answer the question that's in the short story? Actually, the game was there, and then we wrote the short story as the end cap piece, and then it flows from there into the Warriors video, which was the season cinematic. So all of the pieces are connected in the background, but people might not realize what order they start in because it just takes a long time to make video games.
Right. Does that mean that you guys are working on a sequel, or
So I mean, currently no plans for a sequel, but you know, we're still following along after finishing the Mageseeker and seeing how we go.
I think that the Warrior, because like at the end of the game, Sylas mentions the people up north.
I think Kara mentions.
It was a Kara that mentioned like
yeah,
the
I think
savages
Sylas.
up north.
Because Sylas basically, when they're done, he's like, okay, that was a good first start. We tore down the Mageseekers, but the whole system is busted.
Right.
The institution, the reason the Mageseekers happened is because the system is broken. And if we don't do anything, another Mageseekers will just spring up, like, you know, from years from now. So I think Sylas realizes that he needs more firepower and he needs more help. And that's where Kara says, like, well, I know some people up north that might be able to help.
I mean, ÄZbeth said it as well. He basically told him, like, you're gonna take me down, but there's always going to be someone else who will take my place.
And so when Sylas is like, and then, you know, we've seen the Warriors cinematic, so we know maybe not how that story ends, but we know at least where it heads.
And the last and most important question comes from Zoe. Was there a debate as to whether he should have nipples or not?
We tried, but he has no face in the game, so it looked weird. It would look really weird. I mean,
I love that we tried.
In the portrait, he has nipples.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that game. It was too weird.
But it was just like you were just like sitting there waiting and like thinking like, do I add that one little pixel or do we remove it?
It's just one pic. It's not that hard. If people at home want to try, it's not that hard. You can put one pixel on and see what it looks like, and it looks.
He has no face.
Yeah, no face detail, but nipples is like looks a little weird.
The details are so important, you know. It's like it's the priorities.
In animation, Sarah, like every time he moves, or the character, you'd have to move that pixel with it, like every time. Like it would...
I can imagine someone sitting there animating the tiny little nipple. Just, like,
just
back and
keep
forth.
making sure it keeps in line. Like they'd be like, "What am I doing?"
And the last thing that I found out that I wanted to share with you, and I just wanted to ask if you guys knew about it. So the name Sylas has a connection to ancient Rome, and Silva means wood or forest, and Sylvanus was the Roman god of forests. So the fact that Sylas was spending all of his game majority of the time in the forest is pretty on brand. It's pretty cool.
I had no idea.
So yeah, that's like something cool that I found out.
I wonder if maybe the Champ team knew that when they were pitching, like way back in 2018, 2019.
Right.
Like maybe they knew that when they were pitching it, but no, that didn't factor in directly.
The fact that it just kind of like smoothly went and there is amazing.
Wait,
in my opinion.
sorry. I mean, yes, it was all planned.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah. No,
Sorry.
everything was
Yeah,
planned.
there we go,
8 years in advance. Yes.
It was a long play.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me and having this amazing discussions and answering all of our questions. I know there have been a lot, but I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And and once everything's gonna be ready, I'll just upload it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Dinka, and thanks all of your fans and all your community as well.